Melissa. I decided to do audio feedback just because I thought it would be a little bit faster than trying to type all of my comments, so I could get it back to you and have the grades posted more quickly. I hope you don't mind hearing my lovely voice. Your abstract is good. I think the only comment I would have is, remember I made a comment on the draft of the abstract about being consistent with your use of handheld as whether it's one word or two words. So I think most of them got changed, but you see here, this is a 2 word, here's a 1 word, and I think the majority of the rest of them are 1 words. So just be consistent, and that's all. Here in the introduction, I would just say maybe if you had any data or information with regard to the number of people who use handheld devices or the percentage of young people who have some sort of technological device or something like that, or the prevalence of musculoskeletal injuries or something like that, would give some sort of scope as to the problem. How big is the problem? And that draws the reader in. So, it tells me as a reader, why should I care about this? So, just something that highlights the scope of the problem would be helpful in setting the stage for why a person should care about the results of this literature review. Again, you got a couple of 2 words and 1 words, and then I think you're missing a word here. So be careful. Make sure you carefully proofread. Okay, this is a good theme. Again, you got the inconsistencies here. 1, 2, 3. I like that you include here how much time people spend using handheld devices. I think that gives credibility. You don't, if you're talking about these authors in the text, you don't need the parentheses. You can just leave the parentheses out. Rollo, Wells, and Amick. You don't need the third. 2010 and Wu, White, and Kung, 2017. Just do it as if you're writing the paragraph, but we need the and in here like it is in here. This is a good synthesis sentence here. Total time spent and more than 5 related to musculoskeletal disorders. That's a good synthesis sentence. The reader has no idea what these numbers mean. Out of what? Out of 100 or out of 5? You need to, if you're going to use numbers like that, you have to put into context what it is. I have no idea even what you're using, what was used to measure that. So, provide a little bit more detail if you're going to include something like that. It would be good to find a way to better synthesize this information. You're flashing back and forth between the two, but find a way to write it similar to the sentence that I said previously was a good synthesis sentence, rather than going from one to the other and then focusing really on one of them. This is not a complete sentence, although it had the potential of being a good synthesis sentence. This is okay, although I don't know that it's necessarily relevant to answer your question, but it's okay to include a sentence defining or explaining what each of them is. You need to review this APA in-text citations or how you're citing In this case, the 2017 should be in parentheses. You can say that Wu et al. Studied the differences, but that 2017 should be in parentheses. This always should be, when you're referring to research articles that happened in the past, they should be in the past tense. Is this supposed to be, oh, I get it, never mind. More than 5 minutes, I'm guessing, is what you're trying to say here. Need punctuation at the end. Here you don't necessarily have to discuss how an OT would treat someone with any of these conditions, but what is the relevance of this research to OT practice? This is okay, but you might want to expand a little bit on the relevance to OT in general as a profession. You did a little bit here, but maybe a little bit more would be appropriate. Aside from this one sentence or two sentences, you're not really discussing the strengths and weaknesses of the research. So you need to go into that in a little bit more detail. As a body, what are the strengths of the research that you found? What are the limitations? Also, you're not making a global conclusion about the results of the study. If I go back and I look at your question, what is the state of the research relative to your question? I'd like to see a little bit more discussion about that. You should be talking about the fact that the studies, there's a lot of variability in the studies. So it's hard to really be able to give a lot of credibility to the research at this point. A lot of, because it isn't consistent, there weren't a lot of statistically significant results. So you should be discussing that a little bit more in terms of what is the state of the research relative to answering your question. Overall, not a bad job. You want to do a little bit more proofreading. I think there are some minor errors that you made that you probably just overlooked. Looking at your references, I've given quite a bit of feedback on references, so I'm going to assume that they're pretty good, and it looks like they are. Yeah, looking pretty good. Okay, as I said, overall, pretty good job. Okay, I hope you enjoy the rest of break.